and we're going to A-B them now. We're going to just play them. And then you guys can also tell me what you noticed. Let's go for it. So we're going to start with the live drums. Lights, camera, action. Greetings and salutations, boys and girls. Max here for Mellow Media, and welcome to an episode that I call Only Flams. That's because today I am putting my drum processing under the microscope. Remember in my live drums masterclass where I kind of left you guys hanging? Well, today is not that day. Today is a good day. Today we're going to have a look at how I process my kicks, my snares, and the kit overall. And in addition to that, last week we did the digital drums masterclass, and we are including that in this. So we are combining the two. I figured it would be an awesome flex and an awesome way to see both the similarities of how I process both and the differences, sort of the departure point of both live and digital drums. This way, it doesn't really matter which area you endeavor in, live or digital. We're going to basically contrast and juxtaposition the two and really have an awesome episode. So we already covered the featured songs or mixes for these two. The drums that I'm taking today is from episode 2, where we did the prep for success. The drums from Kwamambala. I love how I got those drums, and that's why I wanted to feature them here today. But I guess just as a refresher, let me play a bit of the song. And for our digital drums, if you remember, we did a theme song where we scored the how to analog episodes, and this is the theme song. The theme song was also part of the digital drums masterclass we did last week, so you guys should be familiar with it if you watched last week's episode. If not, please do watch that episode. It gives a lot of context for what I do here today. So another reason I chose these two specific drum kits and performances is not just to contrast live versus digital drums, but because both the tempos are 81. And what I essentially have is the loop from Kwamambala to glue the two together, so when we do an A-B, it is not so jarring. And it is easier for us to sort of switch between the two, without like going from like a live drum kit to like maybe trap or house or something, and it doesn't really translate all that well. So now that I've played both drum kits, I guess we are up to speed, or are we? Now, these two masterclasses, or this lesson, will assume that you watched my live drums masterclass and you understand and know essentially how I arrived at my live drum sound. This will also assume that you watched the digital drums masterclass and you understand how I got at the sound that I have today. Reviewing much of what I did in those videos is beyond the scope of this lesson, and I went into painstaking detail about phase and layering, my philosophy, my methodology, as I promised. And if you would like greater context and to know exactly what I'm talking about, I suggest you watch the live drums masterclass. It is an amazing episode on getting your drums to slam. And it is also worth watching the Digital Drums Masterclass, as I said. So I also, before I play, I also want to point out that I didn't quite level match it, but I did peak match it, because there's one salient difference that I wanted to point out between the drums. And we're going to A-B them now. We're going to just play them. And then you guys can also tell me what you noticed. Let's go for it. So we're going to start with the live drums. Okay, so write in the comments essentially what y'all heard in terms of the differences before I get into all of that. You guys got it? Okay, let's continue. Let's start with what's the same, and then we also delve into what's different between the kits. So if we look here, I mean, each kit has a kick. That is quite bog standard. Each kit has a snare, and each kit has hats. Let me just unmute this. So each kit has hats. That is quite bog standard for just about every drum kit. Where we have the kits bifurcate, which is just a very fancy word for split, is in the toms. Now, my digital drum kit has like a tom fill that I remember the Steven Slate SSD kit. Told y'all it's on everything. I have this fill that is part of like every 8 bars, but that is nothing compared to essentially what the toms do from a live drum kit. In a live drum kit, the drummer uses the toms more creatively, more as like accoutrements and decor for the drum kit to really add meaningfully to the breaks and fills and the groove, the rhythm of the kit. Another difference between the live drum kit and the digital drum kit is the cymbals and overheads. So what the overheads do for a live drum kit is essentially make it sound more 3D, because the mics are capturing the kit from above, and it really captures the 3D sound that you get to pan hard left and hard right. And let's just listen to the live drum kit without the overheads, right? And then listen to it with the overheads and see what we pick up. And then you get to really feel that sense of 3D to the drum kit. So here it is with the overheads. Without. So as you can hear, the overheads really add like this 3D depth to the drum kit. And the digital drums tend not to have overhead mics. And in fact, one of the salient differences I'll point out later is that digital drums don't have mics that listen to each other, and we'll get into this. So let's listen to the digital drum kit as it relates to the live drum kit in terms of just having a 3D, wide, and atmospheric feel. So as you can hear, one thing that I love about live drums is just that 3D big vibey feel. And one very big difference between the live and the digital drums is bleed. This is from a live show. You guys, no doubt, who have been with me since the beginning, or at least watched the drums masterclass stuff, the first 3 episodes, know that I mixed a live project for Lindiwe Mnisi, and yeah, you'll see the drummer Sniggywe on stage, and all of the vocals and things bleed into his performance. Let's listen to that. So you could hear that essentially the vocals and the band and stuff is in the drums, and that's why live drums are the last boss. That's why people fail at them. They are really, at least in my view and my experience, the most difficult form of drum mixing. I often say to my students, you want to get good at digital drums, mix live drums, because the level is so high, because the expectation is so crazy. When you come back down to like digital drums, it is a cakewalk. All right, so let's just recap how we essentially got to these kits that we have. So if we scroll back up to the live kick, if you remember, we have 4 kicks, creating the volume and the density that I spoke about in the digital drums masterclass. We had the 4 kicks. We had the kicks in and out that I got from the recording. We had the serum sine wave that is on both kits, and not forgetting the Dan kick as well. So let's go through some of this kick processing that I do over here. And what I want you to keep in mind is that the digital kick is essentially composed of the same stuff that the live kick is composed of. It has the serum sine wave that we spoke about, and is made of the Slate SSD5 free. Thanks, Steve. Free drum kit, and I used the kick from there, and we went through how I essentially composed that, and we'll go through it a bit some more. But let's look at the processing on the kick. So what you will see is that you have this apex here around anywhere from 40 hertz to 60 hertz. So I spoke about that weight that the serum sine wave gives me. I spoke about that, making the windows rattle, that people have in their cars. That is what the serum sine wave adds. Then we have this area over here, and we see the apex is round about probably 140-ish. So that basically that weight and that knock on the DAW that I spoke about. And then, as you can see, I de-emphasize this area. Let's just put it quieter. I de-emphasize this area, and then of course you have the beta area that you can hear, like you could hear that. And so you can see that the kick is a full-bodied instrument. It's not just lows, it is all those areas that I spoke about, the 60 hertz, the 160 hertz, the 600 hertz, and the 3000 area that makes up this kick. So if we just get into the processing, now I did cover this in I think in a global versus nested effects video, but the how to analog video, you guys got an insight into my chain, but now we get to see the live drums one. So standard, like I said, I have this guy. And for this, I felt that I needed quite a bit more of the 60 odd hertz, 50 odd hertz to come through. Probably the way I balanced the serum sine kick, probably wanted a bit more of that to come through, and a tiny bit of the 160 area coming through. I did boost in a bit of the highs and the beta sound to get us to the kick that we currently have that sounds like this. Now, in the how to analog video, I spoke about soft clipping, and we have a whole video of serial soft clipping coming along, and we'll really delve into this. But you'll see this light flicker over here. So what I'm just doing is I'm just going slightly over 0. So if we had to look at the mix console over here, if you look over here, you'll see it's not a crazy amount, it's just a little bit. And then as I explained in the global versus nested effects, I have a nested parallel compressor kick on my parallel compressor on my kick. That is doing some soft clipping, giving me parallel compression, some parallel EQ, and we'll get into that later. Both of those effects are going to my kick bus, right? So the dry channel and the parallel compression, the nested effect, is going to the kick bus. And as I pointed out, I have my tape machine on the kick bus. I've tried this in various positions, and I still like it at the top of the key over here. It's the best place that I found for it. So we have the tape machine, and we have it on 15 inches per second, and we have it on the volume 2. For those that are familiar with Flywheel, it is just a warmer curve, warmer tone, which is what I want for the kick, right? Then I have some EQ on the kick. So I just wanted to de-emphasize some 300 and emphasize some more of that 3K over there. Then I have a compressor on the kick. I like the Cenozoics for kicks. I find that the Cenozoics is very transparent as a compressor. It has a bit of color to it. If you go through in Plugin Doctor, you'll see that it has a bit of color to it. But what I like about this, it's very transparent, and I want the drums to have a very transparent sound. So we have the Cenozoics compressor. So in terms of the attack and release, I have an attack of 21 and I have a release of 150. Now, I spoke about briefly in Prep for Success, I briefly spoke about compression windows, and this is sort of like that. This is a compression window that I'm observing. Let me just see. Let me just bring up my trusty calculator. Let me say, remember 740 when we got to the reverb. So we say 60,000 divided by 81. We get 740, we divide it by 2, and we divide it by 2. So 185 is probably my compression window. So if I take 21 and I take 150, I get to 170 odd, and that's my compression window. So if this is a quarter note, this is an eighth note, and that's a 16th note. So I'm compressing the kick for total of a 16th note. So the attack that I have is just to let some of that punch through, and the release is of course to just lengthen the sustain. So that's the compression I have. And last, I have this Neve emulation over here that is just also adding some soft clipping, some color. So if we had to look at the console over here, you see it's doing slight things. It is not a lot, and we'll go through it in my serial processing tutorial. That's an awesome, I started editing it, I can't plug it enough. Okay, so that is my live kick, right? Let's juxtaposition it with the digital kick. In my digital kick, remember, it's composed of two kicks. It's composed of the Steven Slate free drum kick, and it's composed of the Serum sine wave. And the EQ on it is very similar in that I boosted some more lows in, but like I said, excessive 160 when it comes to hip hop. Let's just listen to that. Really, like, you want to get excessive in that area because, yeah, I boosted it a little bit of highs. It's very similar to the Kwamambala kick, this kick that I have here, and similarly so You'll see that there's the red light is flashing over there. And let's just see what I'm doing here. Yeah, I'm a bit more aggressive, I guess, because it's digital. Right? And I have the nested effect on here. Same thing. So now you really get to see the similarities. So I'm getting a bit of parallel compression, fattening up the kick, some parallel EQ. And I didn't used to be a proponent of parallel EQ till I tried it, and it really adds a bit. So if we had to take away, let's just take away the parallel processing. As you can hear, it like really adds like more weight, and hopefully you're viewing this on the correct device. And here's about to be a lot of differences. So I still have the flywheel, same, so we don't need to cover that again. But look at how short the chain is. Then I have this guy doing the same like color and soft clipping, and there's no other compression. And why is that? That's because digital kicks tend to have a more consistent level and don't really need compression. And shout out again to Warren Hewitt, when he said it years back, I was like, nah, homie crazy. And then as I grew as an engineer, I realized I'm actually kind of like just messing with this by adding too much compression. So that parallel compression that I have is enough. And then where the compression is coming from, if you remember our how to analog, is the soft clipping, because I am going over, let's just go here. So if we had to observe, so I'm going a decibel over here, I'm going 2 over there. And remember how I said that soft clipping is free EQ and free compression. And that's essentially what I'm getting here. I'm getting free EQ and free compression. And that's why I don't have a compressor on my kick, on my digital kick, that is. So let us play both side by side like we did before. And then we notice the differences. So all right. So what I will do is I will leave it up to you guys to sort of point out the differences between the kicks. But in both instances, we got awesome kicks and we got genre appropriate kicks, which is very, very important. All right, as before, we started with kicks. Now let's move on to snares. Let's just discuss the alchemy of the snare. Let's have a look at the phase response of the snare. Let's go. All right, so there we have the live snare. As I said, it has a fundamental of roughly 240, 237 as we pointed out. And it is composed of 4 snares as well, 4 kicks, 4 snares as well. So what we have is the snare top, the snare bottom that was recorded on the night. And then we have the snare layer that was provided to us by Mixed by Mark. Shout out, go and check out his YouTube as well. Homie has awesome tutorials. And then we had the hard edge snare that I got from my Slate Trigger drum library. And then if we had to juxtaposition it with the live snare that the digital snare that we got over here, this hobby over here was a snare that I got from a sample pack, a snare that I really like that's clean enough, and the Serum snare that I layered it with in the Digital Drums Masterclass that we went through. I'm going to go to the session in a bit, but essentially, as you guys saw, I used the Serum snare, the third snare, to buttress the two snares, and this is what it sounds like. And essentially, the fundamental is around 200, which I had to tune. So let's go through how I process both snares and juxtaposition them. So starting with the live kit. So we have parallel processing on the snare. So we have some parallel compression. And that light is flickering, so you know what's going on. So we're getting some parallel compression, some parallel clipping as well. And let's see how far over zero that is going. So if we had to look at that, we're getting quite some aggressive clipping. Right? Now, unlike the kick, the snare loves a bit of punishment, and that's why I do this. That's why I don't mind doing that. On a snare in parallel as well is the 4000E, and I didn't add any body at the bottom, just added a bit of air, and it's doing the same thing. Let's turn it up. So you can see it's doing the same thing. I like two parallel. Like Uncle Roger said, 2 walks. JB Oliver got 2 walks. Love Uncle Roger. I got 2 parallel processors on my snare. And as I said, they are nested. So they go to the drum bus that's over here. And on the drum bus, well, the snare bus, my bad, I have the flywheel. Now, what's different between the kick and the snare is this is on 30 inches per second. It's a brighter color because live snares tend to be dark, and you want them brighter so that they match the vocal tone. It's a nice life hack over here. And then I have Galfos. Galfos is just there to add brightness. Let's see what Galfos is doing. So Galfos is just controlling and balancing the frequency response and spectrum of the snare. Then I have this guy. So just to speak on the compressor, observing the compression window with our trusty calculator of 180 over here. So it's also a 16th note. Because of the rhythm, I wanted to, you'll see that 4 plus 180 adds up to 185. So I'm observing that compression window. Now, there's no real rules when it comes to this. You can have it different. You don't need to dogmatically adhere to certain things, right? But in this instance, it just felt good, especially because of the way he plays. Sometimes I'll have a longer compression window, like 300, 400 milliseconds. Just depends on what I'm processing. So we have that compression window that we observe over here. And then lastly, we have this guy doing some soft clipping. Let's just have a look at that. So you can see it goes over, and you can see there's automation on the snare. We'll get into automating later, but yeah, there's automation on the snare that I had to do, but more of that later. So if we had to look at this, so it really just depends on the snare strike how much it will go over. It is, I'm getting it confused, but you'll see in the serial processing masterclass is that it's difficult to soft clip live snares and live things in general. You can't really set a reliable level. You sort of have to set a best, like an aggregate level, so you don't crush the thing. So I'm getting lots of free EQ and compression from the soft clipping as well. That's how I process the live snare, right? With the nested effects that we covered in that episode, and with the direct processing. Now for the digital snare. Right, so I forgot to go over what I do on the snare channel itself. It's pretty basic, forgive me. It's pretty basic. It's just I boost in some highs. That's all I wanted. I wanted to boost in some highs. So if you wanted to see how this EQ looks over here, it's just a big shelf in the mids. But let me not deprive you of that knowledge, Shame. Let me show you, since I promised that we're going to do this thing. So when I put it at around about 3K wideband, and then I have that boost, push it up to 60,000, and I do that, we have this wide shelf. And digital EQs, as I expressed, is great for boosting because I'm boosting with color and harmonics. So if you go to the harmonics analysis, you're getting those harmonics as well. You're getting that source, and then I'm boosting with it like I am doing here, and I'm just getting the harmonics of this channel strip, and I'm getting that nice big open shelf. So if I had to just go back to the snare quickly and just bypass the EQ. Now you'll hear, obviously, some brightness go away. And the reason I just have that touch of brightness at the top is I like to match the vocal tones. Like, we'll get into tonal balance later, which is really the goal of EQ. But to match my vocal tones and other tones, I needed just a bit of a brighter snare that cuts through the mix. Now let's go to the digital snare as promised. So on the digital side of things, I have this guy and a similar move. And in how to analog, I spoke about protecting against Nyquist. This one, let's just look at the analysis. Yeah, there you go. So just doing the cheap oversampling move over there and punching up the high mids just a little bit. I probably wanted just a little bit of that and nothing else in the EQ. Now we spoke about in Plugin Doctor what this guy adds in terms of color, and then you'll see I'm doing a bit of, you'll see this light flashing. So you'll see that light flashing, and what are we getting here? Yeah, there we go. You can set way more reliable levels with a digital snare once it does that. It's gonna land there just about every time. I have a parallel processor, the same snare, and I just EQ'd in some mids and some lows, some body. I wanted more of that, right? Taking advantage of the soft clipping and the color, so that snare clip goes over slightly over here. Right, so as you can see, I'm way more gentle. So if we go to the snare group, and I don't have two processors, I just have one because the snare is solid enough. And we go to the flywheel. This one is warmer because the snare has already got a lot of high energy built in, and that high energy, the reason why I layered in the serum snare is not only to get more body to that snare, but it's also to add high energy. So we got that. What did I have in terms of EQ? I tried this, but then I was like, nah, let me take away this EQ. So we don't have other EQs, and we have, of course, this guy, but I have it on the 81, which to my ears is warmer than the 84. The 84 is a cleaner preamp emulation, and the 84 is warmer. So I wanted the snare warmer. And if we look at Galfos, I didn't add any brightness. I more just wanted it to tame stuff, right? So that's some of the more salient differences, is that I wanted the live snare brighter, because live snares and recorded snares seem to be darker, and this one I more wanted to just balance the brightness. That's why I also had this EQ over here. But what I did was I probably darkened it with not only the cheap oversampling that I have here, which is just to protect against Nyquist, but I also used the color to create sort of like this veil and this sheen over the top. And then we just have this going over soft clipping cymbal. So if you had a look here, you will see it's just doing a dB.5. So that kind of serial processing to add color and clipping and all that is what I have on the snare. And again, suspiciously, no compressor, because the level is quite consistent, and compression can have a detrimental impact on your stuff if overused, and especially because I have it in parallel and there is compression standard on my master bus, which you won't see here today because we just brought in the drums. Okay, so that is the kick and a snare, the two big ones. Nobody really cares about anything else, but we're still gonna cover it. Okay, so let's quickly cover how I process the cymbals on a drum kit. Now with the cymbals and the hats and the overheads, what's the most important information is in the mids and up. So you'll see that my EQ is quite aggressive in the lows, in that I'm taking out a lot of the low energy, not completely, because you don't want to completely take out all of this energy. You want some of it. It still adds to the 3D-ness of the kit, but you do want to take some of it away, especially to make room for the vocals and the bass and other stuff over here. It's not really needed information in your hats and overheads and stuff, and that is really up to you what you want to keep in your overheads. There's no rules, it's only really what works. So for my overheads, I don't have any nested effects and parallel processing. I just have this tape machine over here, and this is a brighter algorithm with the flywheel. Like I said, we just covered this EQ where I essentially just take out some of the lows and do a high pass. I have some compression over here, and this compression will be a bit quicker, and I'm playing both at the same time. Let us just solo that. And you'll see that the compression here is quite a lot. I like quite a bit of compression on my overheads, and when I have room mics, you'll see it's even more severe. So it's quite a bit of compression on the kit, and then I have this 84 one, which is quite a clean emulation compared to the other two, which is warmer. And if we had to just quickly cover the hats over here, as I covered in how to analog, I have these over here just protecting against Nyquist, and I roll off a lot of the low energy. Let's just see some of the low energy I had in the hats. So if you look at that, that is really unnecessary over there. So let's switch that on. And you'll see the most salient information then comes through, which is I want the mids and the highs from the hat. And if I look at this hat, it's probably the same. We have to stop doing that. So you'll see it's the same. I'm really rolling off a lot of the low energy. Yeah, a lot of the low energy that doesn't meaningfully add towards what the hats, the function of the hats. Let's see what I did on the shaker. Same thing, protecting against Nyquist slightly. I wanted to see the frequency response of this. Okay, probably did it, but just as a safety, I did that. And similarly, so there is no parallel processing on it. Hats are present enough. A warmer tape machine, a warmer algorithm. I did some crosstalk because I probably wanted to exaggerate the phase differences between the left and the right channels for this digital one, where phase isn't as important, which we'll cover, and this bright algorithm over here. I probably felt the balance of them is what I need. And that's essentially how I approach hats. And then obviously there's Galfas. I'm sure there's Galfas on my overheads. No, there's no Galfas. Probably felt like I just need it to stay steady. But on my digital hats, there's Galfas. It's adding the body back. I should probably do this because I don't want that body back. Yeah, I should probably do that. Nice oversight. I should probably do that. Okay, so what we have left, we have the toms. Now, the fill isn't worth covering here. What I have on the fill, I just have some of that, just making it a bit brighter. It's really not worth covering. What's worth covering, though, is the toms. And the reason I saved the toms for last is especially because of the difference between the live kit and a digital kick. In a live kit, like I said, they really play a pivotal role. You're getting all of this awesomeness from the tom, like this fill over here. It's just amazing. Cool, really. And that's essentially what toms do. So how do I process toms? I think I did. So the toms that I have is the toms from the drummer, and I layered it with the toms that I got from him as one shots. So I just wanted to add a bit of the stick sound of the toms, and let's have a look. Yeah, same EQ. And for tom 3, I wanted a bump here, I guess, just to add some more lows. Let's see. Same with tom 4 and same with tom 5. I just wanted to bring out the stick sound. If you look at these EQs in general, just bringing out the stick sound, the highs of the toms, and bringing out a bit of the lows and doing some high passes. And with each tom, the high pass gets lower. So if we had to look at that, the high pass will be further up. That one is 60, that one is 50, and I deliberately created a little bump there in the lows. And I have a bit of compression on each of them, the same Cenozoics compressor that I have on all of them, that I'm just compressing the toms with. So then I bounce those toms out because I like to print my effects. This you'll learn about me. So I printed my hat. I generally print my overheads these days, and I print my toms. The reason is because I found that once I get them where I like them, I tend not to change them. It's just I started asking myself, what can I get rid of? And what that does is it just creates room on your computer's physical hardware, and it creates room on my mental hardware, knowing that the toms are done, like the hats are done. I do save the processing in a separate session in case I want to review that. Let's say I just want to bring it in and make adjustments, and then sometimes I'll keep the processing and sometimes I'll just print it out again, and it saves me a lot of CPU, both physically here and physically there, knowing that it's done. And I do this quite a bit. As you get to know me and you explore my sessions and methodology, you will see this is what I do. So the toms are printed, and that's why there's nothing on these toms, but there is a tom bus, and there is the same parallel processing with 4000E because I like the weight that it adds. And then here we have a warmer sound because I want a more extended bottom in to the toms, right? I have Galfas, and I did bypass the lows this time because I found I had a mix where they said, oh, but your toms, man, they sound a bit skinny. And I was like, nah, bro, there's no way my toms can be skinny. And I found that sometimes Galfas just takes out areas that you don't want. So I just bypass those lows. And then BX glue. I probably for these toms wanted a bit of glue for this guy. Like that's why I was shocked. I was like, oh, I usually don't have bus compression on my toms because the parallel compression like adds a bit of glue for me, and I do the soft clipping. So if we had to play this, yeah, that's quite a bit. But as you can see, toms sound full and nice. So I'm doing some soft clipping with the preamp, which is giving me the full body of the toms. You know, let's go over it again. Let's just listen. So you can hear it sounds nice. It doesn't sound crushed or anything. I learned, like I said, snares and toms, they like a bit more punishment. So I do give them a bit more punishment to get them where I want them to go. Right, and I think that is everything. Oh wait, there is more. All right, so we are going to zoom out a little now. One thing I want you to take note of is the differences in reverb, how I approach reverb in drums. So before I explain how I approach it, let's listen to the differences, and I'm going to switch this loop back on. And we're going to start with the live drums. Digital drums. Alright, I want you guys to give your thoughts as well. But here is my approach to digital reverb versus live reverb. Generally, in a live situation, you add way more reverb. Generally with studio drums, depending on what the client wants, but generally clients, when it comes to this live thing, want way more reverb. And the reason you add way more reverb is because it makes it sound like you're in a bigger space. Our brains, even if you do not know the theory behind reverb and sort of like the spatial science behind reverb, you've been in an empty room and you've heard the reverberations and the echo. So your mind automatically knows, whether consciously or subconsciously, when you hear reverb, it denotes a bigger space. And that's why live drums, as I demonstrated here, have more reverb. And when it comes to digital drums, generally a little reverb goes a long way, and that's generally with studio productions in general. Something about recording in studio and adding reverb, reverb just goes a long way. And for this song, I needed a tighter drum sound. But let's listen to the digital drums. So you'll notice it's drier, and that works. Especially because you want the snare a bit more forward, you want the kit a bit more forward, more in your face. That is just also one of the premises of a digital drum kit. Your more urban, more hip-hop stuff tends to be a bit drier, and it just works that way, whereas your live music tends to be a bit more vibey and they want reverb. Trust me, singers want reverb on their voice. They just want you to, like, if you took the spices and you just sprinkled, they'd be like, where's the sauce, where's the spices? But when you do this, you just like 2 walks. JB Oliver got 2 walks, 2 reverbs. You just throw it. Man, the singers love it and the band will love it. That's just a nice life hack. So zooming out a bit more, now that we have covered the reverb, let's cover the parallel processing. Now I have parallel processing on the kit as a whole as well. And this is where the drums converge a bit more. The parallel processing and the bus processing is just about exactly the same. Now there are alternatives. There are times where I change my mind and I'm like, I really want something else, and we'll explore some of that. So on the live kit, we have the first parallel process we have is Saturn. So Saturn, I have some parallel saturation and compression going on. This is like little hacks I discovered, and what I'm going to do is we're just going to press the listen function here and bring it up. Let's listen to it. So it would take too much to explain what I'm doing with Saturn over here, but I'm adding parallel compression, I'm adding parallel saturation in the same breath. As you can see, the soft tube here, the drive, and I'm adding a bit of parallel EQ. I'm lifting this kick band over here to add more weight to the drum kit, right? So if I had to and I'm adding like extreme highs to add more sheen, and usually I have this oversampled when I do bounce it to mitigate the effects of aliasing. So I do have this activated when I do bounce my mixes. So that is Saturn, right? And then the next parallel effect I have is Flywheel. He's also a parallel effect on the drums. I love it. This thing is just magic. Let us listen to him. It will be kind of difficult to level match it, but I guess focus on the qualities that it adds. So what the tape essentially adds is a bit of that crunchiness, a bit of that aggression, and I'm adding it softly underneath my kit. And as if I didn't have enough parallel processing, I have this guy, Kazrock True Iron. So I'm adding a bit of aggression and so on. I just like, I don't know how I arrived at three kicks, 3 parallel effects, and lots of nested and global effects. But let's listen to With and Without. Obviously, there will be a drop in intensity. It's difficult to level bash these things, but nonetheless, let us hear it. So they add quite a bit of awesomeness and attractiveness, for which there is, if you hire me, definitely a charge. Let's just listen to it on the digital kit, what they add on the digital kit. Let's go back. So as you can hear, it just adds that lift. The kick gets fuller, the kit gets brighter, the whatnot. And they're about the same. Maybe with Saturn, I don't add high energy. Yep, I didn't add high energy. I just added more low energy. But it's the exact same. That's where they converge. And where they converge as well, I like clippers on my drum bus. I have this clipper over here on my digital bus, and these are way easier to set for digital drums. So let's just observe it. So I'm doing slight clipping. I'm not doing a lot. I'm just doing slight clipping. And clipping is such a loudness hack. So not giving away too much of the clipping masterclass or the stereo processing masterclass that I want to do. When you add up all of these things, when you shave off the transient systematically, that's the source to loudness. Eventually that leads to a mix that would otherwise be 2 or 3 dB quieter is now 3 dB louder. Where they bifurcate again in terms of bus processing in the clipper, I find that with live drums, I often have to automate this. So at points it can get a bit intense, and at other points, like the drums are not engaging the clipper. And I find that I just have to go in and automate the ceiling. So as you can see that it's armed and there's the ceiling. It was probably engaged on the session that I imported it from, and I didn't import the automation with it. So I'll just load that as well as some B-roll so you guys can just see what I usually do. But usually I find that I have to automate the clipper on my drum bus. Sometimes I have to do it for my digital bus as well, because there may be some incoming heat from fills on sections. So when the clipper engages too much with the drums or engages too little, you just have to go in and do slight automations. Sometimes it's really detailed work. I literally have to go transient by transient, and the reason I have to do that is because the drummer plays the kick and the snare at the same time. So he'll first play the kick, then it's like clipping all right, and then he'll play the snare and the kick together, and then suddenly you have this big spike in energy, and then the clipper is working way too much. And it's one of the things that has really changed my mixes for the better, going in on groups and automating the thresholds and just generally the behavior of compressors to be more contextual. Not to sit and forget, but I'm foreshadowing and giving away some sauce here that I need to save for later, so might delete later. So as of the date of this recording, our national football team just qualified for the World Cup, and that's why I feel I had to represent today. Now this jersey has seen many Rugby World Cup victories. As you can see, it's a bit worn, and hopefully we'll see our national team do well. So Mzansi, stand up. All right, boys and girls, that's it for this one. I feel like I promised that this episode would come, and I feel like Bruce and myself over-delivered with the quality and the quantity of what we gave y'all today. But this is what this channel is about, giving you more so that you can become more, because the mission statement of this channel is to help you make the music of your dreams. And hopefully with this episode, we're helping you make the drums of your dreams. If life worked out as planned, this episode should be airing about Christmas time, just a week before Christmas. And if you are celebrating Christmas, blessed and very Merry Christmas to you and yours. May this holiday season be amazing. And my wish for you is that Santa gives all of you slamming drums and some nice snares. But if you are on the naughty list and you do not qualify for such a gift, you can always just come and watch my drums master classes, because what does Santa know about snares anyway? When it comes to drums money, I make it rain, dear. I'll allow it. So up next, as I kept marketing and kept hyping, we have serial processing, and it's more than just stacking one compressor after the other. It is a lot of goodness that you would want to see. So stay safe, have a great time, and come back to us in a new year, and we'll have some dope episodes waiting for all of you. And as always, and until then, love what you do and do what you love. Peace.